Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Tell Me Yours, a storytelling podcast with me, your host, Trey Everett. Hello and welcome to another episode of Tell Me Yours, a storytelling podcast with me, your host, Trey Everett. I am so excited for my guest today. He is the frontman of a band that I really love and have for a long time, the Ballroom Thieves. If you have not heard them, please go check them out right now. Pause this, go to Spotify, listen to their whole catalog, and then come back and listen to this story. It was so great to chat with him. He tells an absolutely insane story that I'm super excited for you to hear today. Please welcome to the pod, Martin Earley.
Yeah, for sure. It's been a weird time to be in a band, but
Yeah, I bet.
But all in all, we can't complain. You know, we're lucky to be living where we are and to have the friends we have and the family we have. So, yeah.
That's cool. Are you living now kind of like close to where you grew up? So is this kind of like where your roots are?
Sort of. So I grew up in Europe, in Switzerland.
Oh,
and
no way.
So my family and I moved to the U.S. when I was 13.
Oh, wow.
And so when they moved to Maine, and I live now about 2 hours away from them, also in Maine.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, you're going to tell me a story today.
I am, yeah.
I'm so excited to hear what this story is going to be. I have no idea.
There were a lot of contenders, but
I love it.
I decided I'm going to tell you the story of our last tour before the pandemic hit.
Okay, cool.
So this was our release tour for Unlovely. So we were headlining. Our first shows were in Denver, or we're in Colorado.
Cool.
So the logistics right off the bat were a bit of a shit show. So we were going to leave to go on the road on February 24th. So we live in Maine. Callie and I, and Devin at the time lived in Maine too. So there was a logistical issue where we had to figure out how we were going to get to Colorado, rent a van and a trailer, and then drive up to the Pacific Northwest and then all the way down to LA. And so the easiest way to do that was for Callie and I to fly out early, go to LA, rent a van there, and then drive to Denver, and then pick up a trailer there, and then the rest of the gang would fly into Denver and we'd pick them up, and then we'd start. So
makes sense.
Yeah, right.
Foolproof plan.
Great start. So the first thing, this is going to be like a list of a series of unfortunate events, not the book, but just the literal. Great. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So
the first thing that happened is that our vehicle up here, we've since bought a new vehicle, thankfully, but our vehicle was an 02 F-150 on its last legs. Like, you know, there's no heat, there's no AC, it rumbles like crazy whenever you go anywhere. You can go maybe 55, you know? So we're supposed to drive down to Boston to catch the flight out to LA, and the morning that we're supposed to leave, our truck breaks down.
Oh,
and
no.
We try to bring it into the shop. We have a shop locally that's really great, and they're trustworthy people. We bring it in, and usually they're on top of it, but this morning, the owner of the shop had died. So he had died the day before he tragically passed away in a snowmobiling accident.
Oh my gosh.
And so they were like, sorry, we can't do anything right now. So then our manager, Eric, who lives in Portland, so about an hour away from us, he said, okay, I'll just drive up. I'll pick you up, I'll bring you down to the bus, and you'll take the bus from Portland down to Boston. Then he got in his car, and his car broke down. So then he borrowed a friend's car, and he drove up to get us and put us on the bus to Logan Airport. So finally, okay, we're at Logan Airport. We get there, we check our stuff, we eat some shitty airport food, and then we fly over. There's a layover in Vegas, I think.
Okay.
I remember putting $20 in, one of those slot machines at the Vegas airport, and in it felt like 12 seconds, it was all gone. So I think I still have there's a receipt that's like you can cash out, and it's 0.01 cents, like $0.01. Yeah. So that was the Vegas layover. And then we flew to LA, and we picked up our van, and everything went fine. We stayed with a friend of ours in LA, and then we rented some backline gear, amps and that kind of thing.
Oh, cool.
in LA, and then, then we made the drive over to Colorado. And that drive was pretty uneventful. We almost ran out of gas at one point, but,
all things considered, that part was pretty smooth.
yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. And we didn't have the trailer yet, so we just had a 15-passenger van just packed with gear because everything that was going to go into the trailer was just in the van. So we get to Colorado, and Callie's cousin lives in a suburb of Denver, and so we're staying with them, and I have to go and pick up the U-Haul trailer that we're going to use for the whole tour. And so we booked the smallest size trailer that they have because it fits all the stuff we need.
Cool. Yeah.
So then I get there, and they say, "Oh, we're all out of the small size. We have to give you the big, like 6x12 trailer." So we're like, "Okay, fine." They gave us the same rate. It's
cool.
just way bigger.
Just way too much space. Yeah.
Tons of space in there, and it's way heavier. And maneuvering it with a 15-passenger van at the front of it is not the most fun, but it is what it is. And then that night at around 10:45 p.m., the rest of the crew is flying in to Denver from Boston and from other places. And so the whole crew is it's Callie and I, and then Devin, our drummer, Ariel Bernstein, who at the time was playing guitars and keys, who is now our full-time drummer, and then our tour manager Abby, and our sound guy Danny.
Cool.
So there's 6 of us total. Everyone's psyched. We're ready for a good release tour. Tickets are selling well. We like the Denver show is already sold out, so we're excited. Awesome. So we booked 2 warm-up shows before the Denver show. So there's a house show in Colorado Springs that went really well. It was really fun, stripped down set. And then we had a show in Greeley, Colorado, which if you ask anyone in Colorado about Greeley, they'll just tell you that it smells terrible there. And we were like, we had no idea what they were talking about, but we got there and it really does smell terrible because there's a massive slaughterhouse. So like the slaughterhouse industry in Greeley is top notch. But but
the
other
local
than that,
economy is killing it, but it's not smelling so great.
yeah, they're ignoring it. They figured out how to live with it. I don't know, but people were super nice, and there was a nice, there's a nice taco place right next to the venue, so that's nice. Always a plus.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But then, other than that, it was pretty uneventful. We met the support band for the whole tour was Harlequin Gold. They're a duo from Canada. Cool. And so we met them that day, and we kind of got acquainted, and we had a nice show, and we went back towards Denver after the show. And then the next day is the Denver show, and things went pretty well. We went thrift shopping. I got a sweet Chinese collar shirt, with hidden buttons, and it just happened to fit. Found some leather shoes for $3. It was really like, things were going.
Your luck has officially turned around.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So we thought. The show was sold out. It's at this place called the Globe Hall, which is a really fun rock club in Denver. It's an old Croatian meeting hall. Oh, wow. So it smelled like just, buckets of beer had been drenching that floor for just centuries. But in a really nice, homey, good way,
Yeah,
when you step into a bar that just has seen its share of beer, you're like, this feels right.
This is right.
Yeah. So that show went really well. We were excited. We had kind of, knocked out some of the kinks during the 2 warm-up shows for the set, and everything was going really well. And
do you guys? This is just a curiosity I have. Do you guys keep the same set for each show on a tour, or do you change it up at this point?
So it totally depends. Cool. Usually we'll kind of come up with 2 or 3 different set lists based on the length of the set, and then for a release tour we tend to keep it pretty much the same.
Pretty consistent.
Yeah, because there's just something about really getting to know a set so that without looking at the set list exactly what's next, what the transitions are like.
That's cool. Yeah, that's cool.
You really get into a groove, and so we tend to keep it the same. So for this one, we definitely we kept it the same set.
Cool. Okay, cool.
So the next day after Denver, we were supposed to drive towards Utah, and then the next show was going to be in Boise, Idaho. And we got some reports right before we left that there was supposed to be some snow, and it's it was supposed to be about 2 inches of snow, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
So we drive west on I-80 towards Ogden, Utah. We were going to stay there for the night and then keep going. And we got about halfway through the drive when we're in Wyoming, and we stopped for gas and to switch drivers. And we noticed that the snow was picking up, the ice was kind of caking onto the back of the trailer, and the winds were picking up a little bit, but we didn't really think too much of it. So then we kept driving. I was in the way back with Callie, and our sound guy Danny was driving, and all of a sudden the weather gets way worse. It seemed like out of nowhere. The speed limit out there is 80. So there's all these 18-wheelers that are driving 80 miles an hour, regardless of the weather.
Yeah.
And so
that's horrifying.
We're kind of, we were sliding a little bit, and we kept going. And then, there was a truck next to us that hit a passenger vehicle that was kind of in front of us, right next to us. So
oh my gosh. They
start sliding, and the truck starts sliding, and our sound guy has to kind of take our van into the median, kind of over the embankment and crash into the snow, because all of the vehicles behind us are starting to slide too. It's all icy, and the winds are at this point up at 60 miles an hour. So
oh my gosh.
So yeah, he did all things considered, he did a great job trying to get the van off the road.
I don't envy him in that moment, but
yeah, it was scary, because everything kind of went white, and the trailer jackknifed behind us, and we slid off the road, and then we came to a stop, and we kind of just sat there kind of shell-shocked for a second. But then, the rest of traffic, they were no one could see anything, so everyone was crashing into the cars in front of them.
Oh my god.
Because even by the time they were able to try to hit the brakes, it was too late, and the ice was already, all over the roadway. So it was at least 5 minutes of just crashing. Oh my god. And we got out of the car because we felt like we were just sitting ducks,
Yeah.
And as we were getting out of the car, and another truck hit the side of our trailer and jackknifed it even more, so that it was like perpendicular to our car. We got out of the car thinking that we might get hit in the car, if we stay there. So we got out and we got into the median, and by then there was about 3 feet of snow. So we're just kind of trudging through the snow in the median. We can't see anything because it's like a whiteout, and but the cars are still crashing. We can hear the big crashes behind us.
Oh my god. And
then we realized that there's cars coming from the other side of the highway, and we're like, man, what if they go off the road, and they, what if we get hit somehow from that side? What we didn't know at that time, found out later, is that there were cars coming from the other side for a little while, and then they stopped. And we just figured someone had put up a, emergency sign or something. But what actually happened is that there was a separate pileup on the other side of the highway.
Oh my god.
So it was just madness for at least 5 minutes. It was crashing, but without the visual of anything. So it was really
just
eerie.
The sounds of it.
Right.
Oh my.
And you're out in this snowstorm, our hair and our beards and everything that were starting to freeze and accumulate snow. And so it was super scary. After a while, the crashing came to a halt, and we figured, okay, let's get back in our van, because the heat was working, everything was okay, it wasn't damaged or anything. And so we kind of waited there, and then as we were waiting, more and more people kind of left their vehicles to check out what had happened, and there was a small group gathering around the car that had been hit initially. And so we went out and tried to help. So this couple had been hit by the 18-wheeler. He had been driving, and his wife was in the passenger seat, and the car was smashed so that he couldn't move at all, so he could only see forward, and his wife didn't make it. And so but he didn't know, and
oh my God.
We were all kind of crowding around this car trying to get him out of the car, and he's asking about his wife, and no one knew what to say. We didn't know what to if what to do. It was just a surreal experience. And so we tried,
my God.
Tried to force this door open, and that didn't work. And yeah, it was just really surreal, I think, is the way that I'd put it. But,
Yeah.
we tried to work together. We were like tethering the door to the door of the car to a semi lift and using that to try to pry it open. And it just, it was terrible. But then at the same time, everyone else who wasn't in the car came together and immediately tried to work together. And there was no ego. There was, it was just people trying to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And it took about 15 minutes for the police and EMTs to arrive, and then they kind of told everyone to get back into their cars, and they were going to figure stuff out. And so some of the crazy things about this pileup, so one of the 18-wheelers was a cattle truck, and the side smashed open, and so in the midst of the snowstorm with all these, all this wreckage, there's cows just walking around aimlessly on the highway in the background.
God.
So there's some photos of that are just, I'll show you later, because they're, it was just so surreal, it was like something that you couldn't really dream up.
Yeah.
So,
well, and nothing you could have ever planned for.
Right.
Just like, that's insane.
Right. It ended up being over 180 vehicles.
Jesus Christ.
On just the one side, and then 150 on the other side, and mostly 18-wheelers. There's a photo of one of the 18-wheelers that had been hit from behind, so that the cargo area was sticking at a 45-degree angle into the air. It was just,
God.
It was out of a movie, and we walked around and checked it out, and it was just destruction. It was like there was no.
Oh my God.
It was just very, very scary. And it turns out multiple people died in that accident, and it was the biggest accident of the year in the U.S. in terms of just the amount of vehicles and people involved. And that stretch of road apparently had been closed in the previous year. It had been closed for over 200 days out of the year because of accidents. So this stretch of highway is known for being just very dangerous, and
God.
The weather changes really quickly. The winds are bad. It ices over, and there's an 80-mile-an-hour speed limit. So,
jeez.
But so they're used to it out there.
Details I would imagine that you guys were not acquainted with when deciding the route.
Well, the tough part is that there's only really two ways to get from point A to point B out there.
Yeah.
And so when it's bad weather, those roads just shut down, They shut down often. But
gosh.
We sat in our van for about 5 hours as the police kind of went around and checked stuff out, and try to document everything. And I think they said ultimately it was like 35 people injured, 4 people who had died, and a ton of people were trapped in their cars and couldn't get out. And
God.
And then after about 5 hours, they brought in a school bus on the other side of the highway, and they kind of told everyone, just if you're able to walk, get on that school bus, and they'll take us back to the next town back, which was Rawlins, Wyoming. If you haven't been to Rawlins, just beautiful town, beautiful.
If there's a silver lining,
untouched.
Great weekend spot.
Not to talk bad about Rawlins, but it's not the place where you want to be stuck for 3 days while they're cleaning the wreckage of this crash. So we were, we got onto this school bus, and it was a really strange situation, because it was just all these people that were, a lot of them were in shock, and it was all people from all walks of life. Some were truck drivers, others were, moving or traveling across country for fun. Others were working in other ways. And there was a guy who had a dog with him, and he was telling us a story about how that day he got in a big fight with his girlfriend because he spent $45 on a dog seatbelt for his dog, and his girlfriend got all upset with him and it turns out that seatbelt saved the dog's life. And then he opened up his jacket, and he had a lizard with him too, like in his jacket. It was just, you're like, what? You can't make this stuff up. But yeah, so we got bussed back to Rawlins, Wyoming, and the bus driver was just a maniac. You know, he had no consideration that we had just been in this major accident.
This like traumatizing experience.
He was just like blasting down the highway, and like he went over a curb. Everyone was just like, "Oh my God, slow down."
God.
But then this is where the story kind of, it's been pretty dark so far, and now we're gonna get to the part of the story where it's like life affirming and pro humans.
Cool. Perfect, cool.
And then we're gonna go back and end on a darker note. But
book it. Yeah, bookend it.
Yeah, bookend it.
With terror, bookend it with trauma and horrifying events. Perfect.
Yeah, that's life, right?
Life, right?
Yeah. So one of the really, I don't know how to characterize it. I thought it was bad at first, but I guess I understand it. But we're all on this bus, and people are talking about, okay, well, we need to get hotel rooms, and as we're booking hotel rooms, you could see the algorithm of the hotels start to work, where like people are booking hotel rooms, and the Best Western that was $100 initially, as people start booking it, the prices go way up.
Oh my God.
So it ends up at like $240 a night for the Best Western because hundreds of people were, trying to book hotel rooms. It was in
demand now. Oh my God.
So we were like, man, the algorithm really should take into consideration why all these bookings are happening. But, then there's just a bunch of really positive stuff as well. So I made a call. It was getting late. It was like 8:30 p.m. and Rawlins is a small town. There's not a lot of places to eat. And most people had been stuck on the highway for 6-7 hours at that point. So I made a call to a restaurant and asked if they would, I explained the situation and just asked if they would consider staying open a little bit later or making some food for the people that are in the accident. And I talked to the manager immediately, and the guy was so nice, and he was just like, maybe he was used to it, but he was just like, absolutely, come in whenever you get back into town. Take your time at the hotel, then come on in, and we'll have some food for you. It'll be warm in here, and it'll be great.
I love that.
So I thought that was amazing.
Yeah.
And there are more stories like that too, because as I mentioned earlier, we were stuck in Rawlins for the next 3 days. So there was so much wreckage that it took them 3 days to physically clear the wreckage from the highway. So no one could go in or out of Rawlins. And so it was tough because we couldn't rent a car to try to get back towards Denver. Everything was closed up. There were no alternate routes. They all said, there's a couple of farm roads and they don't get cleared. So people were getting stuck trying to get out. And, so we were in Rawlins and we didn't have any of our stuff with us. So we had the clothes we were wearing, we had our backpacks, but all of our gear and our suitcases were all in the trailer, which was closed, stuck in because that truck had hit our trailer. So we couldn't access any of it. So I should mention that. So 3 of us went back on the school bus. Okay. 2 of us, our sound guy and Devin, our drummer, they stayed with the van, hoping that things could get cleared that night and they could take the van and keep driving. Yeah. Because the van was okay. And it turns out that bigger trailer really saved our lives because the smaller trailer wouldn't have done as well in that accident.
Oh my gosh.
But so we didn't have any of our clothes in Rawlins, so we took a cab. There's one cab company in Rawlins. So the cabs for like a 2-mile drive is $30. So
oh my God.
We took the cab to the Walmart, which is the only place to buy groceries or food or anything. And so I've never spent this much money at Walmart because we were just, we had to get toiletries and clothes and socks and underwear and so we spent a ton of money there. I've never spent
so much money at Walmart.
It was, it was just a disaster. But then as we were there, we were trying to figure out ways to avoid paying that cab $30 to just drive us around town to just, because we had to get food. There's one Thai restaurant and that's it. And so we had to kind of make things work. So then we started asking just people in the town if they could drive us. And so many folks were just so nice and so kind with their time, where they drove us out of the way, and they would pick us up and drive us again. So there was a waiter, a server at the Thai place whose shift was ending, and she was like, don't pay the cab. I'll drive you to Walmart, and then I'll wait and I'll drive you back to the hotel. Don't worry about it. And she ended up doing that 2 or 3 times.
Oh my gosh.
So it was just, it's in times like that where you kind of, I guess you realize that, people, there are good people out there.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this was right around Super Tuesday, which is really fun. Just a little side note, political action. Yeah, I mean, being stuck at a Best Western for 3 days in Rollins is just not my idea of fun, but it's the only choice we had. So, so yeah, Devin and Danny, they kept driving. They got the van out finally later that night, and we thought we would kind of be able to reconnect with them the next day, but everything was closed. So they ended up continuing to drive, and we just stayed there until 3 days later, when we were finally able to get a car to drive us back the other way, back towards Denver. So we had to actually hire a driver, because that was the only way to do that at the time, apparently. There was no way to rent a car or anything like that. So we had to pay a driver to drive us back to Laramie, Wyoming, and then we rented a car, drove back to Denver to hop on a flight to get up to Seattle. So we had to
Oh my god.
So we had to cancel our Boise show in all that, but that was the only show that had been canceled so far. So we finally got to Seattle, and we had 2 shows there. And at this point, we're starting to, you're starting to hear a lot of rumors about the pandemic and about what's about to happen, and no one's really sure of anything at this point. This is early March, so, March 4th or 5th. People are starting to talk about, is Seattle going to get shut down? Because Seattle, as you remember, it was like where everything started in the U.S. So,
oh my God.
So
I
we're
had
up
forgotten
there.
that until this exact moment.
Yep. So we're up there, and we did a kind of a private show the night before our actual Seattle show, and we noticed it there. There was over 200 tickets sold to the show, but 70 people bought tickets and didn't show up. And we were like, okay, people are starting to take this seriously, and we're listening to podcasts about it, and it just doesn't. It's not looking good, but everyone still has some optimism for some reason. So we played at the Crocodile in Seattle the next day, and that was our last full cap show since. So it was sold out. People showed up, and it was a party. There were over 500 people there. All the sound guys were doing the like the elbow hello, in which you're like, oh, that's cool. I'm glad they're taking it seriously.
That's new.
Yep. And then we went down to Portland, Oregon. That show was great too. And the difference was palpable between Portland and Seattle. Portland, everyone was just like, oh, it's cool. We're fine. It's nice out. We can, let's hit the bar. Yeah. But so that was fun, and it was, we were optimistic too. And then we kept driving down to Bend, and in Bend, way more people didn't show up. So the tickets were still sold, but half the people showed up. Then we kept driving down to Ashland and then to San Francisco. And in Ashland, we played this like black box theater. And I specifically remember it was an older crowd, and a bunch of them were coughing. And I was just like, this is a disaster. These people are not going to survive this, and this is it for us. We're about to catch it. And, I guess we didn't. But
Thank God.
I have a specific note here about how we stopped in Fairfield, California on the way down, and we had just listened to this podcast. And I have a note that said, we sat at a depressing brewery having a depressed beer and depressed food. And it was like, all right. So we had to start considering that this wasn't going to go on for much longer. And so in San Francisco, we had to make a call because we were, our manager was saying, hey, do you want to do this show?
Yeah.
Do you want to cancel? People were starting to cancel shows. Things were in the news more and more, and things were starting to get canceled. Seattle started banning large gatherings like 2 days after we played there.
Oh my gosh.
And so in San Francisco, we decided, okay, let's do this show. We were already there, and only about 35% of people who bought tickets showed up. And so it was a really strange show because, it was much more sparsely attended than we thought it would be. But at the same time, the people that came, we could tell that they really appreciated the distraction, and they really, for us and for them, I'm hoping it was kind of a special show because people didn't really know that everything was going to get shut down. But but that was, for that venue in San Francisco, that was the last show they've put on. And I don't even know if they've opened back up since. Then our next show was LA, and after that show in San Francisco, we just said, okay, we should cancel LA and we should just fly home. And we right before we were about to make the call, we got a call from the venue in LA, and they had canceled canceled the show too. So we were like, all right, great. So we drove down to LA, and we had to wait for 2 days to catch a flight. So we stayed at the Hilton Airport Hotel.
Perfect.
And it was just slammed with people, and like now looking back on it, we're like, no one had masks and no one knew anything. So it was just people at the airport hotel sitting at the bar, drinking and eating. And it was just, it was crazy. The next morning, we didn't fly out till 9:50 p.m. So we had the whole day to just sit around. So Callie and I went to this place, this restaurant that I'd heard about called Felix in LA.
Okay.
And it's like handmade pasta, and I have the guy's cookbook and stuff. I was a big fan, so
that's cool.
We were like, you know what? Let's go to this fancy restaurant because who knows when we'll be able to go to restaurants again.
Yeah.
And we stood in line outside way too early, and we got in, and it was really cool and delicious. And then we haven't really eaten at a restaurant since. So, but then the weird things that were happening at that time too. We stopped at a grocery store or natural market kind of place, and it was just slammed with people, and people were panic buying all the stuff. And so, it was a really unique time. Man. And then we took a flight. We left LA. We took a red eye to Florida first, and then from Florida up to Boston, and then from Boston a bus to Portland, and then from Portland we got a rental car to drive up another hour to where we live. And at that point we were home, and we haven't really left since. So
oh my gosh,
that was all in all the story of entering the pandemic, of trying to release Unlovely, the record, and also this massive accident that ended up making national news and and all that. So
that's so wild.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing all of that. That's like so crazy. Oh man. I remember hearing about the accident. I remember you guys posting. I think you posted something about it.
Yeah.
I did not obviously the last 24 months of the world in existence is just kind of melded into one memory, but I did not remember all of that right before everything shut down.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. Thank you so much, man, for sharing all of that.
Of course.
What an intense...
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much,
nice
brother. I appreciate it. Yeah, it was great to chat. I'll talk to you later.
Cool. Sounds good.
Have a good week, man. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. Thank you so much to Martin for joining us and sharing that crazy story. The Ballroom Thieves have a new EP out now. Head over to Spotify, check it out. They also have some dates coming up in February with Darlingside, another really incredible band. Head over to their website, ballroomthieves.com, for more information. Grab your tickets now. I'm confident they will sell out probably pretty quickly. Head over to their social medias to follow them on Instagram. They are just at Ballroom Thieves. They are the same on Spotify. If you want some extra time with Martin, head over to patreon.com/tellmeyours. You'll get a little bit of extra time, some more conversation. It's really great. Patreon.com/tellmeyours. And if you want to follow us on Twitter and Instagram, we are just at tellmeyoursPod. Don't forget to like and subscribe, leave a comment, tell your friends, share us. Anything helps. Until next time, be kind to each other, and we'll talk soon.